Hey, what's up everyone? Jace Just Sense here, and I'm at this little convention called TwitchCon. We're at the PNY booth with PNY and NVIDIA. So what we're doing today is we're building this computer, kind of featuring some of the small form factor stuff with a 4070 Super. We got a 7800X3D CPU, pretty awesome stuff, and then PNY is going to be giving it away. So stick around, we're going to kind of talk to NVIDIA a little bit about why this small form factor initiative even exists, and then we're going to have some fun building a PC. So what do you guys say? All right, so before we get started with the build, I'm actually here with a face you guys have probably seen in the past, Jacob, now with NVIDIA. Yeah. So why don't you talk to us about the SFF stuff that NVIDIA is really kind of pushing?
Yeah, so it's a new set of guidelines that we worked with the GPU makers and also case makers called SFF Ready Enthusiast GeForce cards and cases. And what it is basically a set of guidelines to help define what a enthusiast small form factor build can work. So if you look at it today, if you take a card like this one's a 4090 card, it's pretty big, right? And
I think it's pretty average.
It's not going to fit in a lot of small form factor cases. So with these guidelines, it makes it easier basically to know what's going to fit into a case. So if you look when you go shopping for a case, if you look for a case that has SFF Ready on it, and if you look for a card that says SFF Ready on it, then you know that they're going to fit together.
Now there is a resource online too that has like all the compatible cards and cases. Maybe not all of them because there are new ones coming up all the time for cases, but is there a place they can go to find out if there's compatibility?
Right, yeah, it's on the GeForce website. And it's being updated all the time as well. And so, like for example, with this card here, we're basically defining if you want to be a part of this program, what's the maximum height the card can be, the length, the width, and then you can be an SFF ready card. So for this card, we basically have a maximum height and include part of the cable, because the cable is also a factor as well when you're building a small form factor.
Right, because a lot of times you'll see the dimensions of the card fit, but once you add the cable and the bend and the radius, it might actually impact something.
So basically we're defining 151 millimeters for the height, and then we define also 35 millimeters, which is part of the bend. Because that's another problem when you're building small form factor cases. A lot of times the card will fit, but then the cable won't fit, right? So that's also taken into account.
Now, does it take into any account thermals or power limits or anything, or is it really just a dimension?
It's only sizing, right.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of SFF cases that are going to have different optimal or maybe suboptimal thermal performance, so the builder should always kind of keep that in mind. You're going to want to make sure the cooler type is paired with the right kind of case. So the one I use today is the
2000D
Corsair, which actually has a lot of room. We could have fit a bigger card in there.
That case is actually more on the bigger side, but some of the smaller cases, like it's knowing which card can fit in there can actually be like kind of a challenge. So that's why the program exists.
Yeah, because you can go from, like I said, the
2000D
all the way down to I think the Dan case is even on the list. I think for some of these.
Like some of the fractal cases that are really small also are on that list as well.
Right. Okay, well, Jacob, thanks for talking with us today. I guess what we should do is maybe go through the parts we're going to use and put it together. All right, so we know the only thing you guys really care about is going to be the parts, especially since they're free. So make sure you guys check the description of this video. You get all the information about how to enter the giveaway, all the rules and requirements, and when it's going to take place and all of that. So with that said, why don't you go, this is for those that are here in person, but I've got my parts assistant here. This is Baby Jay's. You guys know she's not really a baby anymore. But moving on, why don't you hand me the box that says 4070 Super? Yeah, hand me that one. So this is the card that we're putting in, which Jacob just sort of showed you. It kind of fits all that initiative of being SFF ready. So this is a 4070 Super. Obviously, it is no slouch of a card. It is a PNY Accelerate brand card. So PNY is really trying to make a name for themselves with the gaming market to sort of become more recognizable. You guys saw the video I did recently where I painted the shroud, actually, the 4090 Accelerate card. It's been a very solid card. So the build quality is great. I think it's going to be an awesome card for anyone that gets it. So for the CPU, why don't you hand me that gray box right there? Yep, hand me that one. I wanted to go with something that made perfect sense in terms of one, being kind of a low power part since we're going SFF, but two, being a no holds limited or no holds barred when it comes to the CPU, 7800X3D. This is still the GOAT when it comes to gaming. You cannot beat this CPU and its value and its performance and its reliability. So when they asked me what CPU, it was a no-brainer, 7800X3D. For the motherboard, you can hand me the colorful looking box there. This is a ASRock Lightning B650 ITX. The ASRock stuff's actually stepped up quite a bit over the last few years. I've used ASRock off and on for about the last 17 years. Haven't had any problems with the ASRock boards, and I think it looks nice, has a good feature set. It has a really good cost to performance ratio with being a B650 versus an X670. But there are X670 boards available for SFF if you wanted those as well. So this is PNY branded Accelerate RAM. So you may or may not have seen this before. Obviously this is DDR5. It should be it's a 32 gigabyte kit. It is 6,000 megahertz CL36. So when it comes to gaming, it's going to be a pretty good balance of fast transfer rate and tight timings. Another PNY product, this is their Accelerate M.2 Gen 5 SSD with active cooling. So we're going to be replacing the heatsink that comes on the motherboard and using the heatsink that's pre-installed on this because it's active cooling. With Gen 5 cooling up to 14,000 megabytes per second, drive speed is definitely in relation to temperature. So if you want to keep it as cool as possible to get maximum transfer speeds, that's why we're throwing this in there. So we are going with an SF750 from Corsair. So this is a fully modular SFF power supply. It's actually an it's SFX non-L. So the nice thing about power supplies getting so much more efficient and smaller is the fact that we can get higher wattages now in SFX without them being extra linked, which is what the Dash L would be if we were looking at SFX power supplies. So 750 watt, fun fact, you can get these up to 1,000 watts now without going to the longer version. So it's kind of nice where power supplies are today in terms of small form factor friendliness. We're still very much in love with the Arctic stuff. So this is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 from Arctic, obviously. It's a 240 millimeter, which will fit inside of our cooler or our case just fine, which again is the Corsair 3000. So with that said, let's just let Phil do his thing. You guys know what Phil does. He makes this look better. Okay, that's why I hired him. All right, so here we go. The 2000D small form factor build is done. The only thing more nerve-wracking than building in front of a crowd is seeing if it posts in front of a crowd. So we're gonna do that today. If it doesn't post, well, the next person can use my videos to figure out why. So anyway, I can't tell if it's even on. Probably front panel connectors came loose. Here we go. All right, so it posted after I fixed the power plug. You were here the whole time I was building it, so I know you've built a few computers and been around for a while. So my question is to you, what are your thoughts on this build, and what do you think you would have done better?
I like this build. I like how compact it is. I also like how the power thing routes around the back, so like if you put it up against the wall, you won't be able to see in the cables if you manage the other cables. I've never really built in a case like this other than my U-shaped one that I talked about earlier, so I don't know what I would do differently because I've mainly like big cases more than small cases.
I mean, you probably saw, I took a few things out and unplugged a few things several times because you have to it's like a Big Mac. You have to layer it in with the right ingredients and you realize wait, the pickles go on top, right? So
you have to go back and redo it, then
right.
go back up and then connect it right because it's kind of like a puzzle in the sense that you have to make sure how the steps in order to make it compact and actually not pinch any wires or anything in there.
So you said you've only had one SFF build in the past. Would you have another one? Would you do it?
I would do it if I had a room for it. I'd probably make one for like a VR space or like a racing sim, but that would be my only use for it.
Okay, cool. Guns, thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, what we got? It's Cruzy Baby.
Yeah, Cruzy worked just fine.
All right. So, thoughts on the build?
It was actually really interesting to watch. The only thing I had an issue with really was just your table.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
That's the only thing.
you know what? I had a choice. I could have taken the actual folding table and killed my back, leaning over the whole
True.
time, because it took about 2 hours to build this with interacting with the crowd. Or they take your chances on whether or not it's going to Linus drop it on you.
Yeah, I probably would have taken the chances too. Like, I've done builds before on low tables, and oh, my back. Just thinking about it, my back is tight right now. So just.
Is there anything parts-wise you would have maybe changed, or do you think it's a well-balanced build?
I think it's a well-balanced build. I mean, 7800X 3D with a 4070 Super, I think is what you said was in there? Yeah. So I think that's a pretty well-balanced build. You know, I'm a 1440p player. That's going to be perfect. So, I mean, like, I don't see a need to change anything. The only thing I would say is, like, it's just interesting to see this case. So you have to kind of turn it upside down often and just to get things plugged in. But I honestly see the benefit of also cable management with that, too. So
That's why I asked the crowd off camera, do you cable manage as much as you can before you put parts in, like you saw me doing with the power supply, or do you just put it all in? I think with the full tower case, you just put it in and deal with it.
Yeah, to a point. I do cable manage to, like, the very first build I ever did. No, I just kind of threw it together and just, is it working? Great, you know. But now it's gotten to a point where I've noticed the benefits of cable management within the case. Outside, it's obviously it's a little bit different of a monster, but you know, yeah, no, I definitely seen the benefit of you doing it and how you got everything tied up. It allowed for a more smoother build than I've seen other things be done, for sure.
And that's the thing, with a case like this where all four sides are important to the build,
Yeah.
it's not like a normal ATX build where it's just everything's on the motherboard wall minus the graphics card. So you got the AIO on one side of this, you got the intake fans on the other side, you've got another row of fans if you want in the back, you have the power supply, or excuse me, the GPU in the back pulling air in. So you've kind of got to, it's almost like rotisserie build it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I think builds like this are fun.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
it breaks up the monotony of just the same routine every time of building a PC.
Yeah, I've done two, SFF builds before, and like the first one, scary as hell. Broke the pin on one of the motherboards.
Which pin?
The header. The actually broke
Oh, for the front panel?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
That was fun. We had to go get a whole new motherboard for that, obviously.
I mean, if you broke like some random jumper header you were never going to use, big deal. But
Yeah.
you can't exactly get a screwdriver in there and jumper it to turn it on very easily.
Not at all. But then the last one I did was in a Cooler Master case. And that one was a lot of fun. Didn't care for the motherboard choice I had, but you know, either way, it was a lot of fun. It was a good challenge. Doing standard regular builds is fun, but these are just like you get that challenge, you get that like sense of completion once it's done. You're like, I did it, you know.
Yeah, when you get the post screen or the BIOS, that's when the completion is like, okay.
Right.
So, all right, well, thanks for hanging out with us,
Thank
Cruzy.
you.
And guys, don't forget, everyone watching as well is able to go to the landing page and see all the details about the giveaway. So PNY is doing that in about 2 weeks from the time that we film this. So it's going to be around the first week of October. And good luck to everyone else. And I want to say thank you to everyone that stayed for 2 hours and watched me struggle with the SFF build in front of everyone at TwitchCon. But guys, thanks, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. No, thank you. You. And you. Not you.